Welcome to the Topic Blast Revision Series Day 1 walkthrough. The topic for today is quadratics, so please make sure you have your booklet ready so we can go through the questions together. Our first question is asking us to factorize this quadratic. Now we know this is a quadratic because it's got an x squared term, an x term and a constant term. Now just a reminder, the word factorize means to put into brackets. Now a feature of quadratics is that we're going to have two brackets. Okay, and because the variable, the letter we have in this one is an x, we're going to put an x at the front of each one. The next thing we need to do is we need to look at that last number, this 20 here, and we need to find the factors of 20. Now the factor pairs of 20 are 1 times 20, 2 times 10, and 4 times 5. We then need to choose a factor pair. Now the next thing we need to look at is we look at this symbol here. That symbol is really important because that tells us whether we're going to add these two factors or subtract the two factors to make this middle term of 12. Okay, so we need to add two of these factors to make 12. So that immediately tells us we're going to use 2 and 10. So therefore our bracket is just plus 2 and plus 10. So when we factorize that quadratic, we get an answer of x plus 2 and x plus 10. So our second question is very similar to our first question. The only difference is this symbol here, which is a minus in this case. And because that's a negative symbol, that just means that when we look at our factors of 18, we're going to find two that subtract to make that 7. So we're going to start in exactly the same way. We remember that factorizing a quadratic gives us two brackets. We put an x into each of those brackets. Now we look at the factors of 18. 18 is made of 1 times 18, 2 times 9, and 3 times 6. And we need two factors that are going to subtract to make 7. So in this case, that's 2 and 9. Okay, now to subtract to make 7, we need a positive 9 and a negative 2, because positive 9 take away 2 gives us our positive 7 that we needed. In this question, it's slightly different, because in this case, we now have a coefficient here at the front. And that coefficient is going to have significant impact on the way we do this question. But it's going to be done in a very similar way. The first thing that we're going to do instead is we're going to look at these two numbers here. We're going to look at that first and second and last number, that 2 and that 15, and we're going to multiply those to make 30. Now, we're not going to bring the negative with us. We don't need that at the moment because of the way we use the negative. But the 30 is going to come in handy in a minute. So again, with the same thing, we're going to put our double brackets. Now this time, instead of putting an x in each bracket, because of this 2x, we're actually going to put 2x at the front of each. Next, instead of using 15 to find our factors, we're going to find our 30. Now with our 30, that's 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. And we need a set of factors that subtract to make minus 7. Now to subtract to make 7, we can use our 3 and our 10. And if we do plus 3 and minus 10, that gives us an answer of negative 7, which is what we needed. Now, that's not exactly correct. What we need to do, because we've multiplied by this 2 here, we now need to divide one of our two brackets by 2. In this case, we're going to divide the second one because both of those numbers are divisible by 2. And we get 2x plus 3. And we get x minus 5. And that's the factorized answer for that question. Now, question 4 is very similar to the third question that we had. We've got this coefficient here of x squared, so that means that we're going to start by doing our 6 times our 4 to give us 24. Opening up our two brackets, and remember from the last one we put 2x in the last one because there was a 2 here. This time we're going to put 6x at the front of each bracket. Now we take that 24 and we find our factors of 24. We get 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. And we need to find factors that are going to add to make that negative 11. So the factors that add to make negative 11, well, they add to make 11 will be 3 and 8. So to make negative 11, we're going to have negative 3 and we're going to have negative 8. Now, in the last question, we divided by 2 because that was the coefficient here. So in this case, we have to divide by 6. But 8 doesn't divide by 6 and give an integer value, nor does 3. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to split that 6. We're going to divide the first bracket by 3 and the second bracket by 2. And then 3 times 2 would give us that 6 that we needed to divide by in total. So our final answer then is 2x minus 1 and 3x minus 4. So the difference here was to remember that that's 6. We can't divide them by 6, but we can divide it by factors of 6, which is in this case 3 and 2, and that gives us our factorized answer for this question. In this question, we're asked a slightly different question. In this question, it says by factorizing, it asks us to solve our quadratic. And what you'll also notice is that our quadratic is equal to 0. Now, any time that we solve a quadratic, we must make it equal to 0 to allow us to solve it. So we're going to start this question in the same way we did the other ones, which is by factorizing. So we start by doing our 3 times 4, which is 12. We open our brackets. And again, we put 3x in each of those. Looking at our factors of 12 is 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. And then again, looking at this symbol, we want to find numbers that subtract to make negative. Now this is a 1 here, so we're trying to make this subtract to make negative 1, which in this case is going to be 4 and 3. To make negative 1, we're going to do positive 3 and negative 4, because 4 take away 3 is minus 1. Again, to balance out from multiplying by 3 at the start, we're going to divide our first bracket by 3, and we get x plus 1 and 3x minus 4. Now, each of those are actually equal to 0. To solve this, all we need to do is let each bracket equal to 0. So on the left-hand side, we've got x plus 1 equals 0. So solving that, we can subtract 1 from both sides, so we get x equals negative 1. On the right-hand side, we've got 3x minus 4 equals 0. Adding 4 to both sides, that gives us 3x equals 4. And then finally, dividing by 3 gives us x equals 4 over 3. So the solution to that, or we've solved that, and we've got the answers of x equals minus 1 and x equals 4 over 3. Our final question asks us to solve again, but in this case, we can first see that it's not equal to 0. So the first thing we need to do is rearrange this quadratic so that it equals to 0. So our 5x squared stays the same, our negative 6x, and by bringing this 2 over to the other side, that's going to give us negative 2, and now that's equal to 0. So now we can solve the quadratic. Now there's a big hint in this question, and that's that it tells us to give our answer to 2 decimal places. If we're told to give our answer to a number of decimal places or a number of significant figures, that's a big hint to use what's called the quadratic formula, which you should be familiar with. Now, the quadratic formula is given to you in the exam. Okay? Now, the quadratic formula is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, what is a, b, and c? Well, very simply, a is the number before the x squared, so that's our 5. B is the number before the x, so that's our minus 6. And c is our number on its own, so our negative 2. So with that in mind, we know that a equals 5, b equals negative 6, and c equals negative 2. And we're going to substitute those values into our formula. Now, every time you substitute a value in, you should put that into brackets. So if we look at our formula, it starts with a minus, and then we sub in b. b is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6, again in brackets, squared, minus 4 times 5, which is a, and minus 2, which is c, all over 2a, which is 2 times 5. Now, obviously this would be a calculator question, so if we put that into our calculator will likely give us the answer of 3 plus or minus the square root of 19 over 5. Now, obviously that's not in its decimal form. Now, what often causes confusion in this question is this plus or minus symbol. Okay, that just means we have to do the question twice. We do it once with a plus and once with a minus. And if we put that into our calculator, once with a plus, once with a minus, we get an answer of minus 0.271, etc. Now what I like to do is, it asks for 2 decimal places, so I write 3 decimal places and then just put an ellipses. I don't round the value, I just leave it like that. And then the same thing with this one, I go 1.471 and ellipses. Now that number is actually minus 0.2717, and the other one is 1.4717, but we don't need to consider that. We go 1 extra place from what we needed, and then to get our final answer we just round them. So our final 2 answers are x equals minus 0.27 and x equals 1.47. and that's our two answers. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for taking the time to watch it, and we'll see you in the next video for the next topic, which will be tomorrow.